Chapter 3. Well, that's unexpected. Karenna, just outside the what the fuck is going on system. Excuse me, Karenna said. Which ship? The visuals on the front screen hadn't yet resolved, so Karenna looked to her comms officer for confirmation. Ensign Deidre Hollis wasn't prone to mistakes, despite her youth. Ma'am, transponder ID confirmed, Hollis said. It's Hawking. How old is that transponder code? She must be losing it. Was there a new ship commissioned Hawking? Because the only one she knew of was, it's old, like last century old. Yeah, that one. Amon Tanrum, she whispered. Check the star charts, she added, louder. Brett hunched over his console. We haven't moved. We're still in normal time outside Baumgarten. He lowered his voice toward her. Hawking. Didn't you serve on that boat? Tim turned to her, face firm. It can't be your ship, Carr. That's impossible. They're hailing us, said Hollis. Hold, do not engage. Karenna thought fast. Get it together, Lakani. Impossible and weird. That was her calling card. The curse of the ancients. What was the fleet contingency plan for something like this? Ma'am, they're hailing again. One Captain Wendell Ma on the horn. Hollis looked up, eyes wide. Oh, gods. Wendell Ma. Now that was a name she hadn't heard in a long time. Her world freeze-framed. This couldn't be real. Someone was fucking with her. Okay, Karenna said, not voicing any of that. Send a text-only message with assurances we are a friendly Earth Union vessel and will be in touch. Karenna's words had slid out too fast, and she squeezed her eyes together to regain control. That should buy her time. The be in touch part she'd deal with later. Captain, what if they need assistance? Holland asked. Good question. Tell them to let us know and we'll make arrangements. Just the smallest waver in her voice. Okay, what was next? She took a deep breath. Inform fleet? No. Investigate what happened to the ABD? Yes, that's what they needed to. Brett turned to her, interrupting her litany. Think we're dealing with some sort of time thing? Hell, I don't know, Brett, she said, too emphatically, flinging her hands outward. She winced at the looks her crew were trading. Hell of a time to drop the mask. She crossed her arms and tightened them with a squeeze, as if she could juice out her jangling nerves. Are we saying Hawking just popped forward 60? 65 years? Her voice rose at the last, and she dug her nails into her hands to bring it back under control. This day was supposed to end with them triumphantly entering a drive bubble toward Earth. But they were still here, at Baumgarten, with her old ship. The visuals resolved, and it was definitely a turn-of-the-century fleet cruiser. She imagined herself in the middle of a dumpster fire. This was fine. Then the world tilted as her ship pitched. Karenna flailed again, hitting her head on that same railing. She stumbled back toward her seat, but her ears rang and her eyes stung. What in Saturn's scrotum was happening now? Captain, Brett reported, sounding far away and underwater. Hawking is attempting to spin their AB drive up again. Well, tell them to shut the damn thing up. The ship shuddered again. She struggled to buckle in. Her head pounded, and she tasted copper. But her mind had cleared. Nothing like crisis to snap her out of existential dread. We have hull breach on deck 2, starboard, reported Tim. Hollis, called Brett. I sent Hawking a communication, but no response, sir. Wait, she amended. They're attempting to stop, but failing. Someone retched up front. Garcia, their young pilot. Tell him to turn the whole ship off and back on again, commanded Grady over comm. I'm serious, he continued. Remember what we had to do outside Omicron? Get up here, Grady, she began to pace. Captain, said Hollis. They're reporting multiple system failures and hull breaches. They're requesting immediate assistance. Karenna blinked through bright spots in her vision. Hawking's habitation rings still spun, while the external drives on the side of the ship did triple time. That couldn't be good. Time for a snap decision. Hollis, open audio to Hawking. Grady, she said to the engineer as he climbed up the rungs to the bridge. Talk them through it. Take it at Hollis' station, not bridge-wide. He nodded and hurried over as fast as he could in mag boots and grabbed the flex chair, buckling in and swiveling toward the station, throwing on a headpiece. The low murmur of his languid voice enveloped the bridge as she attempted to rein in her stomach. As if in sympathy, Garcia still heaved at nav, tears in her eyes. Tim, at helm, guided the ship through the turbulence, letting it roll with the invisible swells coming toward them. Presently, the waves stilled. Grady threw off his headpiece. They have everything down but life support, spin drive, and comms. Good work, Grady. What about us? Breach contained? Hollis gave a thumbs up. So, let's put a pin in all that. Everyone, why aren't we in an AB bubble heading home? Maybe someone tampered with our drive, Brett suggested. The bomb techs, I mean, not our crew. Plausible. Something tugged at her consciousness. Not the same sentient tug she had felt when the drives were spinning. A missing piece, something she hadn't yet realized. Let me talk to Lee Hale. Grady opened a channel and relayed the question. It wasn't the ABD, his deputy blurted over the comm. Not any of the issues I highlighted. We checked and triple-checked and quadrupled. Anyway, we couldn't find any malfunctions. I have a team looking at space around us to see if there are any substances or forces interdicting our drive. But we heard an explosion, Tim pointed out. I checked those engines myself, said Grady. We had a complete rehaul. It's not like we bought a pig in a poke. It's a healthy, bouncing Albertson Bradley engine. Keep at it, said Karenna. Any issues spinning our hab ring back up to full grav? No, ma'am. We'll send out the alerts and get it done. Hail out. I'm with Grady, Brett said. Hawkins' drive was doing something too, while they were also on spin gravity. I'm glad they didn't turn that thing back on purpose, Karenna told Brett. I don't remember Captain Ma being Wait. The puzzle piece clicked into place. Wait 1 goddamn minute. How could she remember Ma's entire career if he'd been transported in time? She decoupled and stood. Was Wendell Ma or Hawking ever reported missing and never found? Silence on the bridge. Hollis finally replied. No. Our records say Hawking was decommissioned on November 4th, 2375, and Wendell Ma was in attendance. Grady, ask them what year they're from. Actually, scratch that. Ask the exact date. He pulled his headsets on again. And then he relayed the answer. Karenna sat heavily. That was the date Hawking encountered the anomaly that had given her status as an ancient. This wasn't possible. There was a rift that day, but Hawking didn't go through it, except for the small portion of the cargo bay, where a young Karenna had been, alone. Well, that was a cauldron of mystery. So, not from our timeline? Tim asked. They could be from some parallel universe, Karenna ventured. Parallel universes aren't real, said Brett. Yeah, Tim retorted. And neither is time travel. Karenna blinked. We need to reach out to Fleet Command. A minor contact is fine, but we need guidance for anything further. Hollis punched at her console and looked back up in consternation. No can do, boss. Clonk comes down. We can communicate in system, but not out. So, they had to decide for themselves whether to engage more and risk contaminating the timeline. Karenna looked back at the ship. How bad is their damage, Grady? Can they self-repair? Grady checked the readouts and he grimaced. They're gonna need us. I'm worried about life support. He looked up at Karenna, and they shared a glance. Life support. The entire crew of Khayyam knew what it felt like to fear that loss. Timeline contamination. Rifts and explosions. They weren't equipped to deal with this entire situation. But they hadn't been equipped after they had gotten stranded outside Omicron either, and they had made do. Lynette Olson, think. The ship began its grav spin up, and her stomach churned. Keep on everything, folks, she said to her bridge crew. Repairs, gravity, after action on our drive situation. Karenna blinked once and made her call. Grady, let Hollis know if you and Lee need flex engineering teams and she'll coordinate them. XO, can we meet in my office? She and Brett clomped to the back as their bridge crew got to work, quiet professionals, when times called for it. She stared at her XO. He stared back. She opened her mouth. She closed it again. Yeah, he said. Yep. Karenna let out a breath and waited until adequate gravity returned to sink down at her desk, sighing with happiness as weight became real again. Freaking out yet? Brett asked. She put her head in her hands. I want to scream, she admitted, looking up at her friend. Might scare the kids. He folded his large frame into her guest chair, wincing as it dug into him. I'm not even focused on the fact our drive failed again and we're still not going home. What the hells are we going to do about that ship out there? And Brett, she added, trying not to let the apprehension seep into her voice. There might be another me on it. Her gaze wandered to the drawers next to the sitting area, securing her mementos while on float. Probably not a good idea to put any bric-a-brac out yet. Yanni, time travel, Karenna, said Brett. All sorts of ethics questions. I'm not sure about flex teams going on board. It's not time travel. If it were time travel, our reality would have changed. This sounds like a parallel universe with a time slip. The ethical considerations don't even come into play. Brett shook his head but didn't respond. At least the big lunk hadn't taken the step of grabbing his own overlarge chair from his own office and bringing it with him. That usually meant he was going to cross his arms and wait out Karenna's objections, come hell or high water. Her closest friend. His shock of white hair was expanding, and that, combined with his weathered face, made him look older and wiser than she ever could be. Literally, actually. She should probably find some cover for when this all went completely inexorably wrong, as was tradition. But first, she needed to see this through her way. We can't leave our ship sitting there staring at each other like two shits in a sandstorm, Karenna argued. We have to send engineering teams over. That's risky. You saw their damage. We have the technology to make it right. We'll tell Grady to use some discretion. Admiral Montague, her commanding officer, would have a conniption when he found out. But she couldn't leave a sister ship in the lurch. And while he's there, he can do recon. You know there's actually a protocol for this, Karenna. Brett squinted in thought. This may be a new frontier of weird, but Fleet likes to account for unusual possibilities, and you're violating it right now. I can't condone that, Captain. I don't trust Fleet Command, Karenna said. Those contingency plans are theory, Brett. This ship is real. They need our help. They can last a while, long enough for us to talk to the boss. When we get QuantCom back, and then finally reach Union Command, who's going to sit in committee and let that ship slowly lose its functions, including life support, all for the purpose of some imagined adherence to a timeline that hasn't been affected. The memory of her ship losing its own life support after their AB drive failed outside Omicron hit like a brick, and she balled her fists. Conserving oxygen, putting people under for the duration of repairs, the fear they'd slowly suffocate. No one should have to go through that. 48 hours. 48 hours to see this play out while we repair our own comms, and then I'll let Fleet Command take over, she said to Brett. Give me that, at least. Brett sighed his long-suffering sigh, like a "what are you getting me into now, Captain" sigh. I know this is hard, Karenna. His voice was kind. Too kind. It made Karenna's heart clench in that way, like falling apart from frustration and stress was imminent. Just one more kind word away. But with all due respect, I'm going to file a log stating I disagreed with this decision. For posterity. Brett stood back up, walking toward her. But you're the boss. I won't tell on you. Yet. He squeezed her shoulder and quietly let himself out. Karenna tiptoed over to her work area and pulled out a few reports, shuffling through as if that would allow her to think. Her fingers drummed on the desk, keeping time with her fraying nerves. Another her, out there. Another young officer on Hawking, brow-beaten and overworked, walking as if invisible through corridors. People swirling around her, chaos and excitement and love and success inhabiting her peers while she stood empty. How was this going to play out? Hawking in her timeline never accidentally got pulled into that anomaly. The engine's test stalled them out, and they stayed in normal space. But here was a Hawking that did. This had something to do with her. Something to do with the ancients. She knew it. And she didn't like it.